I'll be real, not everything that I say in my videos sounds the most intelligent. Hey, what's up you guys? It's Avery and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who have never been here before, hi, nice to meet you, welcome, I'm excited you're here. Today I'm very excited because I'm going to be talking about Persuasion by Jane Austen. So I've decided with the new year, I am going to have some different content on my channel. I'm still going to be doing a lot of the same hauls and tags and review videos that I normally do, but I also want to do some videos that have a little more substance. So a lot of you may know that I studied abroad in Oxford this summer, and there I focused exclusively on Jane Austen work, which was a dream. It was amazing. So the main part of my course was reading a specific work by Jane Austen and then writing a full-length essay on it, going into depth on one topic or a theme that I thought was important or interwoven in that work. The essay and the work that I did with Persuasion was one that I really enjoyed and I'm pretty proud of, and I really think that I did a good job diving into some different themes within the book. So I thought that I would actually make a video about this book using some of the smart things I have to say, because I'll be real, not everything that I say in my videos sounds the most intelligent. Not that I'm saying that I don't think I'm smart, but in a lot of my videos, I'll just say things like, oh my gosh, I love the romance, ah! Let's just say I don't always do the most in-depth, intellectual review of all the books that I read, which I think is fine. A lot of the books I read are just contemporary romances, so, you know, there's not tons to say about an enemies to lovers romance, you know? But I do have some intelligent thoughts and have had intelligent thoughts in the past. So today I'm going to be talking about Persuasion and some of the themes that I thought were really important in this book. So I hope that you guys enjoy this. So first off, I want to say that I loved Persuasion just from a romance standpoint. It's such a great book. One of my favorites by, you know, J.A. And I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. It was one of my favorite books of last year, so I loved Persuasion. I loved it so much that when I was in Bath over the summer, I went to the Jane Austen Center and I picked up this mug. It says Jane Austen and then it has a little quote on the back, I'm half agony, half hope. And they had 6 different versions of this mug with different colors and quotes from each one of her main novels. And I got this one because I loved Persuasion so much. Plus, blue is my favorite color, so it just happened to work out that the two go together. Plus, I love the quote on the back, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but I love this book. I think that Anne Elliot is a really interesting heroine because she's unlike some of Jane Austen's other heroines in that she is very timid and meek and easily persuaded. And as you read the book, you're just kind of wanting to, you know, shake her and be like, why are you letting your family tell you what to do? Be with the man you love. But at the same time, you still feel for her and you still want her to get her happy ending. But something really interesting about Persuasion is that, yes, one of the main themes of the book is love and romance, but the novel isn't just about love. None of Jane Austen books are. If you only think that Jane Austen books are about romances back in the 1800s, then you need to do some further reading because there's a lot more that you can discover and explore because Jane Austen was such an intelligent woman. So I'm going to talk about a few different themes throughout this book, but the overarching theme is place. And this is what I decided to focus on when I wrote my essay for my course. And place is such an important thing that Jane Austen plays with throughout this book, and she uses place to comment on relationships, vanity, society, and the pressures, the societal pressures that were on people and especially women in the 19th century. In the novel, Anne Elliot actually has this really nice quote about place, which is, one does not love a place the less for having suffered in it. So the novel begins with Captain Wentworth and Anne Elliot having already fallen in love and been forced apart by Anne's family and friends. It's in Bath and Lyme that they learn how to navigate their feelings and the societal forces keeping them apart. So the town of Lyme Regis, which in the novel is just called Lyme, is a coastal town on the southern coast of England. And this is a place where Anne ventures with her friends, but it's also a place where Jane Austen spent time, and she really, really loved it. So even though back then Bath was known as a place of healing, Lyme is really where Anne finds the most restoration. Austen describes the beauty of the seaside of Lyme in great detail, but she says in the novel, these places must be visited and visited again to make the worth of Lyme understood. So Anne's spirits are really lifted as she spends time in Lyme and in the coastal air. And she's even described as looking more prettier, looking flushed, and she just generally looks better than the way she's described as looking when Wentworth sees her again after 7 years. And she is noticed by Mr. Elliot, and it says it is because of her having the bloom and freshness of youth restored by the fine wind which had been blowing on her complexion, and by the animation of the eye which it had also produced. So not only does the coastal air and environment provide a kind of physical glow up for Anne, but you can also tell that it's here that she really has some emotional like refuge and contemplation, and it just raises her spirits after many years of her being pretty depressed because she can't be with the man that she loves. Through the writing, you can tell that Jane Austen really loved Lyme, the way that she describes it as being so lovely. It's obvious that she spent time there and she really enjoyed it. So even though it's not in Lyme that Anne and Wentworth finally reunite, it is in Lyme that Wentworth realizes that Anne is the only woman that he's ever loved, and his feelings for her kind of re-blossom. Even though they never went away, he was holding on to a lot of resentment to her and a lot of pride, but it's in Lyme that he really sees how beautiful she is inside and out. Austen writes, the passing admiration of Mr. Elliot had at least roused him, and the scenes on the Cobb and at Captain Harville's had fixed her superiority. So basically, when Wentworth sees Mr. Elliot checking out Anne, he's like, oh my gosh, she's beautiful. He already knew that she was beautiful, but it really just kind of ignites that jealousy and that passion for her again. And then after Louisa's fall on the Cobb, Anne is the one who everyone turns to and really takes charge. And he later talks about how he knew that he could never care for Louisa or anyone else because he's comparing her to Anne and no one will ever live up to Anne. So, goals. So in stark contrast to Lyme, we have Bath. So a lot of people think that because Jane Austen lived in Bath, she liked Bath, but it's pretty evident from this novel that she was not the biggest fan. We think that she enjoyed it when she was younger, but when she became older and she was really prone to all of the negative things about Bath, she wasn't a fan. So in Persuasion, Austen uses Bath as a symbol of vanity and all the things about society that she loathes. There is a lot of wealth in Bath, but there's also a lot of poverty in Bath, which we see through the character of Mrs. Smith. While Anne doesn't care about that because it's someone that she cares about, she goes down to visit her. Anne's father and sister are really just the characters used to show Austen's resentment of the way people treated lower class individuals. Anne's father says to her, everything that revolts other people, low company, paltry rooms, foul air, disgusting associations are inviting to you. And as we know from this book, Sir Walter is extremely vain. Austen even says vanity was the beginning and end of Sir Walter Elliot's character. So he just cares so much about his reputation and about his place in society, and Anne really doesn't care. Her sister Elizabeth also serves as another character to show kind of the toxicity of society, and especially society in Bath, because she's always constantly worrying and fretting about how they should entertain and what parties they should throw or go to, and not really worrying about their expenses, which, as we know, they need to be worrying about because they basically are having their house taken from them because they're in so much debt. So even if these descriptions in Persuasion aren't enough to convince you that Austen didn't love the party scene of Bath and the social scene, Austen actually writes in a letter to her sister while she's in Bath, another stupid party last night, perhaps if larger they might be less intolerable. So really small parties were kind of a thing that was popular back in the day, which Austen obviously attended and thought were extremely boring or just frustrating. Another interesting use of Bath as the setting of this novel is the fact that Bath is a city set on a big hill, and I never realized until I actually was able to go while I was in England, and it was so cool. But it is a very large hill, so walking to the top of the hill is quite a struggle. You'll get quite out of breath. And back then, the location of someone's house actually corresponded to their place in society. So if you had a house higher up the hill, then you were a higher place in society, more money. So the Elliots lived in Camden Place, which I was actually able to walk up to, which was really cool because I could see the area that where they lived was based off of in the novel, so that was really cool to be able to see. And other prestigious families like the Dalrymples in this book also lived in higher areas of the city, with people like Lady Russell and the Crofts living a little farther down, but they weren't down too far that the Elliots still can't interact with them. But Mrs. Smith lives in the Westgate buildings, and that's way far down, and so she's really kind of seen as not good enough to be in the same company with. Throughout the novel, Anne's father and sister are both really obsessed with the Dalrymple family because they are in high society there in Bath, and they really want to be in their good graces and to be friends with them. And Anne says to Mr. Elliot, "I certainly do think there has been by far too much trouble taken to procure the acquaintance. I confess it does vex me that we should be so solicitous to have the relationship acknowledged, which we may be very sure is a matter of perfect indifference to them." So Anne is just annoyed that her family is so obsessed with getting in the good graces of this family when she realizes that the Dalrymples, you know, probably don't care so much about the Elliots. Mr. Elliot kind of explains to Anne the difference between London and Bath, that in London, the Elliots might not really matter much, but in Bath, they are of higher society, which Anne responds, "I certainly am proud, too proud, to enjoy a welcome which depends so entirely upon place." So Anne thinks it's ridiculous that her family can be high society and worth spending time with in Bath, but as soon as they were to go to London, all of a sudden they don't really matter anymore, which is a very valid point to make. And it's obvious that Austen also believes the same things as she's saying these things through Anne. It's quotes like these that really drive home Austen's kind of dislike for Bath society and just the way that society operated at the time. Besides Lyme and Bath, another place that is really important in the theme of this novel is also just the house that the Elliots occupy, Kellynch Hall. Even though the Elliots are in great financial ruin and a lot of debt, it is almost completely out of the question for Sir Walter to rent his house to someone else. And when they're finally able to convince Sir Walter to rent out the house, he is extremely prideful in who he's going to rent his home to, and he is embarrassed about the situation, so he doesn't allow for it to be advertised. And his strong unwillingness to be parted from his home is similar to anyone who wouldn't want to have to rent out their home because they are in financial trouble, but it's more than that to the Elliots. It's not just because it's their home, but it's because what Kellynch Hall represents, and they will only allow the finest people to rent out their home. So through Sir Walter and Elizabeth, Austen is kind of making fun of the impracticality that some people had when it came to having pride in their reputation, even above financial security. So even though it seems like Austen's pretty anti-Bath, good things do happen in Bath. It is where Anne and Wentworth finally reunite, but it's really interesting where they decide to unite because in this bustling city of nosy people and gossips, Anne and Wentworth finally reunite on a quiet gravel path called Union Street. So not only does the name of the street serve as a symbol of the two of them coming together, but so does the environment of the street. As the two walked along, it says, heedless of every group around them, seeing neither sauntering politicians, bustling housekeepers, flirting girls, they could indulge in those retrospections and acknowledgments. So this is finally where the two of them are able to just talk and let all their feelings out and tell each other everything they've been wanting to say to each other. It shows how far they, but specifically Anne, has come from listening to the people who persuaded her not to be with Wentworth and all of the pressures they feel with society. They've just kind of decided to say, you know what, whatever, we're gonna tune it out and we're just gonna focus on the two of us. So being on this little gravel street, kind of away from all of the high society gossips and all of the people who care. Being away from that is where they're able to find joy and come back together. You may be saying, you know what, Avery, these themes are interesting, but you're not really talking about the romance aspect of the book so much. And that is true, but something I really realized was that all of these themes are really what drove Anne to make the choices that she made, and that eventually affected the romance. Anne is very easily persuaded, and she is very swept up in keeping her family's good opinion of herself, as well as the opinion of Lady Russell. And so when she's young, all of these themes that we talked about of high society and who you should marry and marrying someone who is the same station as yourself, those things were able to persuade her not to be with the man that she loved. So yes, I talked a lot about place and about society because those are the underlying driving forces of all the choices that Anne makes and the choices that led to her and her love's split. You know, that's why the book is called Persuasion. It's because Anne was able to be persuaded by her friends and by her family to worry more about these societal expectations than to follow her heart. And so it's interesting that the settings, like Bath, really kind of encompasses all of the things that oppressed Anne and oppressed her freedom and what she wanted to do, and then a place like Lyme is a place where she's able to really feel free and to become happy, and being there is what makes Wentworth realize he still loves her and wants to be with her. But I mean, I'm with all y'all that the romance is the best part, but it's interesting how all these other factors affect that. So that was pretty much the main points that I made in my essay, and I hope that what you take away from this is that place was a really important aspect of this novel, and if you've never looked at it the way that I looked at it when you read the book, then maybe reread it and see if you agree with some of my opinions about place. Not only does Persuasion have these really cool themes in it, it also is a great love story, and the declaration of love that Wentworth makes in his letter to Anne at the end is one of the best that I've ever read. He says, "I can listen no longer in silence. I must speak to you by such means as are within my reach. You pierce my soul. I am half agony, half hope. Tell me not that I am too late, that such precious feelings are gone forever. I offer myself to you again with a heart even more your own than when you almost broke it 8 years and a half ago." Like, you're kidding me, right? Are you kidding me? So romantic, so beautiful. Everyone, get you a Captain Wentworth. You deserve it. So that's why when I saw this mug at the Jane Austen Center and it says, "I'm half agony, half hope," I just had to get it because that was one of my favorite lines of the entire book, and it's just so romantic. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos from me, especially more videos like this, then subscribe. There's a few other Jane Austen novels that I really studied and did some interesting work on, so maybe I'll make more videos like this. If you guys enjoyed it, I would love to. Comment down below if you've read Persuasion and what your thoughts on the book are. If you haven't read it, then comment what Jane Austen books you have read and which one is your favorite. If you can even pick. I know it's impossible. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day or night or whenever you're watching this. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.